Jason JROCK Houston, and you are listening to Chaotic Riffs Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.chaoticriffs.com. Our special guest tonight is Mr. Speed drummer Quinton Kufahl, and Mr. Speed, like I said, is a Kiss tribute band based out of Cleveland, Ohio, and you are the band's newest member. Is that correct, Quinton?
Yes. How are you doing?
I'm doing great now. Before we get into tonight, we're going to talk to you about the fact that 2018 marks the 40th anniversary of a Kiss solo albums, and I recently interviewed your bandmate Rich, and he talked specifically about the Paul Stanley solo album. So I thought, being that you play the role of Peter Criss in the band, we would be talking with you tonight about the Peter Criss solo album. Before we get into that, I'd like to get a little background information on you for our listeners. So could you share with us, Quinton, how old were you when you first started playing the drums?
I first started playing the drums at the age of 5. Santa or my parents, whomever, gifted me with a drum set that was 5-year-old sized, and at that point I was just hitting drums,
of course,
and off and on for about 7 years. At the age of 12, going into middle school, I had the opportunity to join the school band, so I then enrolled in private drum lessons, and from there I really got hungry as to wanting to play the drums and more about how to play anything I could on the drums. And after playing, having private lessons for 7 or 8 years and playing in all of the middle school and high school music bands and ensembles that I could, I began trying to seek out how to join or start my own band in school, and through that I was able to have quite a run so far as playing music. But to answer your question, I've been playing drums since I was 5, and I guess actually playing real drums since the age of 12. So being 22, 10 years, or I think 17, it depends, I guess, how you want to look at it.
Oh, wow, that's an interesting story. Now let me ask you, what made you pick the drums as your instrument of choice? Was it let me ask you, as far as drum influences, was Peter Criss your very first influence, or did you like other drummers before you got into Kiss and that?
Along with getting the drum kit, St. Nick, before Christmas, got my brother and I a VHS tape of the farewell tour, the last Kiss concert that was available on pay-per-view.
Okay, oh wow, how cool.
And my St. Nick picked up a bootleg copy of that concert with all the behind-the-scenes backstage footage and all that good stuff.
Yeah,
and seeing them suspend out of the ceiling with all the sparks and the flare and everything, what 5-year-old wouldn't love Kiss? So through that, Peter Criss was definitely my first influential drummer, and to this day is still a huge influence on me. Yes.
Well, now let me ask you, Quinton. Now, I guess you're a little younger than I am, but when you so the farewell tour, you got a bootleg video of that, which is cool. But do you remember what was the very first Kiss album that you picked up, or the very first Kiss song that you heard that really made you a fan?
The first CD I got, again, at the young age of 5 or 6, was the Greatest Kiss CD.
Oh, cool, yeah.
That's the cover where each guy's in a letter with the reunion tour costumes on it.
Oh, that's a great place to kind of get your feet wet as far as becoming a Kiss fan, because Kiss has at that time Kiss had several albums under their belt. We're talking about a band tonight as we speak, been doing it for well over 40 years. So it's kind of interesting that like I said, you're a little younger than I, so that you kind of became a Kiss fan kind of later in their career. That's kind of a cool thing. Now let me ask you, as far as you becoming a Kiss fan, they were kind of just they were on their farewell show. They'd been back in makeup for a few years. How big was the look and the image as far as you becoming a Kiss fan, or would you say you were equally impressed with the music? When you were first getting into the band.
Hard to say, I guess. Yeah. Being a kid, when I discovered them, I think you like what your parents like.
Yeah.
And you feel a need to kind of latch onto that.
Yeah.
And through that, both my parents were in the, old school rock and roll. My dad in particular was, I think, the driving force behind
Wow.
wanting me and my brother at one point to do this kind of Van Halen brother band thing, but my brother kind of got out of that. So for me, it was, Kiss was always like, oh, my dad likes this and I like my dad, so
Yeah.
I need to kind of latch onto this. And aside from that, I just really love the theatrics. I love the makeup, the costumes, and the music, I think, came a little later.
Oh.
I remember air drumming to the Babysitter, the ones who a double platinum cassette tape that my father owned that he would put on in the car, and I'd sit there and watch cars on the freeway go by, and I'd air drum to that, and think I was playing something correctly, and clearly I was not.
Well, Double Platinum, that's another album that's coming up on the 40-year mark this year, and to me, that's one of the ultimate Kiss albums for a simple fact that while it's the greatest hits collection, if you look at you look at all the songs that are on that. I mean, first of all, we get a double album, so Kiss fans getting I think their money's worth. And then if you look at all the songs on that album, I mean, that's not only those are the Kiss, the classic Kiss hits, but those are, I mean, like 40 years later, those songs, a lot of those songs are still in the set list today,
Absolutely, and it's like I said, it's an interesting discussion I think that we'll have tonight in the fact that I am, I guess, late to the party as far as being a Kiss fan. I'm catching the tail end of their career,
which is interesting. And I mean, Kiss.
I certainly don't want to see my heroes die.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting time, and I wish I could have went through the '70s and experienced the not necessarily hysteria, but how prevalent they were in the society. Because I mean, everyone knows who Kiss is virtually today by just appearance, but the fact of the matter is, in the '70s they were such a huge part of society.
Well, like I said, I'm a little bit older than you, but I tell you, as a guy that came up, I grew up in the '70s and '80s. I mean, I remember back in the day when I discovered Kiss. I mean, I'll be honest with you, as I love the music, but I'll be honest with you, the look is what initially hooked me, and then I heard Rock and Roll All Night for the very first time, and Destroyer came out, Alive, and I was hooked. I thought, because when you first see the band and you're a little kid, you think, God, these guys look like they came out of a comic book. They look like superheroes, and so it was a little, and then they had that movie Kiss Meets the Fan. Oh wow. My favorite band, they made a movie, and then when solo albums came out, we got 4 new Kiss solo albums in 1 year, which is a really cool thing. When you said you kind of got hooked on Kiss for the simple fact that your dad was a Kiss fan. Now, I got to ask you, did you ever attend a Kiss concert with your dad, or how old were you the very first time you went to a Kiss concert?
My first Kiss concert, I was 8 years old, I believe.
Wow.
And it was for the World Domination Tour, which was the last tour, as we know, with Peter Criss on it.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, I missed seeing Ace Frehley live, but I was lucky enough to see my very first drumming inspiration live. Peter Criss. And
wow.
To this day, every Kiss concert I've gone to, I dress up for. And I don't know why. I just get a real kick out of dressing up and going to the show. And if people want to take photos, I think it's a ball. It's just really fun for me. I'd be lying if I said I didn't like the attention. I kind of like the attention, and to me, it just shows the fans and the band, if they happen to see me in a crowd, that hey, this guy is really devoted to the band.
I mean, that's the whole point. That's the whole point of what you do. Now, let me ask you. Of course, we said at the top interview, you have a drummer for the Cleveland-based Kiss tribute, Mr. Speed, and you mentioned you're the newest member. So I was curious if you could share with us, how you landed the gig, and I got to ask, when you got the offer to join the band, did you have any reservations about joining up with a tribute band?
Well, interestingly, I've been a Peter Criss or Catman impersonator since I was 17, so
wow.
18, 19, 20, 22, 5 or 6 years of on and off being a Kiss tribute. Well, I shouldn't even say on and off. I've been in some Kiss tribute band for 5 or 6 years now. So the Kiss tribute career for me started when I was 17, I was on Craigslist looking for bands, and I came across an ad, Kiss tribute looking for Peter Criss.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked on the ad and said Milwaukee-based Kiss tribute. I am from Milwaukee. I'm not from Cleveland, and maybe that could be another topic to discuss. But living in Milwaukee, there was a Kiss tribute in Milwaukee by the name of Dr. Love.
Wow.
And it had pretty good success. Not nearly the success that Mr. Speed has had, but for being in Milwaukee, we held our own.
Wow.
And I reached out to the ad, and I know they exchanged numbers, and my father ended up talking to them.
Wow.
Because being a 17-year-old, I didn't really know what to say.
Yeah.
So I went down to rehearsal with them, and I'm sure they had their doubts as far as, do we want to have a 17-year-old in the band?
Yeah.
How is a bar going to take that? And at the end of the day, either my plane shined through or my real hair came through, and they thought, hey, this guy can do it. And that's how I landed my first Kiss gig.
Wow.
For Kiss band, and I went with that band for about 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
And I got an opportunity to join a different tribute, more of a side tribute, and at the time it wasn't a case of let's switch bands. It was, hey, I have another outlet to play in a different Kiss band in conjunction with my current Kiss band. Well, one thing led to another. It wasn't going to work out playing in both of them. So at the end of the day, I chose to play in the new Kiss tribute, which happened to have Jim Seda, who is the current Gene Simmons in Mr. Speed.
Oh, wow.
So in meeting with him, he must have really liked my Wisconsin charm, or what have you. I played with that band for about 2 or 3 years, and kept a good rapport with everyone in that band. And I got a call one day when I was roadieing for a band in Wisconsin from Jim saying, hey, what is now the old Mr. Drummer, or the old drummer from Mr. Speed quit.
Wow.
Would you be interested in the job? And I'm like, wow, I need some time to process this. So
Yeah.
I had a conference call with Jim and Rich and got the info I needed and answered all the questions I had in my mind. And talked it over with my girlfriend and my family, and kind of decided, like, is this something I want to do? Is this up my alley? And I finally decided I think this is one heck of an opportunity to play in what is, as everyone knows, the world's best Kiss tribute.
Oh,
and I can tell you this, I do not regret my decision.
No doubt. Now,
joining the band, because I absolutely adore everyone in that band. I cherish every gig we play and every opportunity we have to make an appearance, because it's a ball going out with these guys and being on the road playing top-notch gigs with people who love Kiss as much as I do, and actually people who love Kiss more than I do. And I didn't think that was something that ever existed, but these guys are, Rich and Jim are in their 50s, and I'm sorry if they're listening and they hear that, but they got 30 years on me, so obviously their fanaticism surpasses mine by 30 years. They got to live in the era that Kiss was arguably at their greatest. So
it's paying off.
To answer your question, that's how I got to join Mr. Speed, and it's truly a wonderful band. And if anyone has any doubts as far as if I want to see the band, or if they've heard anything as far as rumors, negative rumors, we're a brand new band, and there's 2 members that are brand new, and I really think people should come check us out and really see for themselves. Don't rely on a rumor that you heard over the internet.
Yeah, well, here's a funny
trip and see the band and see what we're about, because I think they'd be pleasantly surprised at our devotion to Kiss.
Here's a funny thing. I can honestly say I've never seen the band live, because obviously I'm from the Los Angeles area, so I haven't had that opportunity. But from what I know about the band, like I said, I've interviewed Rich. I think a total 3 times so far, and great professional guy. Like you're saying, I think Rich told me that Mr. Speed actually, they've been in existence, I think, for over 22 years, something like that. So they're like one of the premier Kiss tribute bands, and when I say premier, I don't just mean that they look the part and they can play the songs. I mean, this is a band that in their 22-year history, I know that they came out and they played on this TV show out here in Los Angeles called the World's Greatest Tribute Bands, which for a lot of the tribute acts, it's a premier TV show, and so they came out and played that show at the Whiskey, which is a great opportunity, like I said, for a lot of the premier tribute bands that have been around a while. And so I know they did that. I mean, Rich mentioned a couple of years ago that they played at the NBA Finals, which is a pretty cool thing for any rock band, I think, to get the opportunity. And then and then in early January when I interviewed Rich for this the most recent time, he mentioned that you guys were getting ready to go and appear at that Atlantic Kiss convention where Vinnie Vincent came back after 20 years. Now, did you guys get to play at the event? Did you just make an appearance, or what was that like?
I did not go. Contrary to rumor, we did not play.
Oh, okay.
We certainly inquired about playing because with expos, we really enjoy playing those, as it allows us to play all the B-sides to every Kiss album that every diehard fan would love to hear Kiss play, but Kiss will never play, unless maybe on the Kiss cruise. So for us, it's a chance to pull out, songs from the Elder, 80s Kiss, songs on the B-side of, the 70s albums. It's any of our favorite songs would be in that set list, and we put in the work to get them up to playing condition, and that's how that goes. But Rich and some of his friends and some of our roadies went to Atlanta Kiss Expo. I did not go. Atlanta was too far of a drive, and I think I had a couple fill-in gigs up in Wisconsin. But from what I heard from Rich, it was a grand time. I heard he got to meet a lot of people who are internet friends as far as different Kiss
fans and stuff,
webisodes, and people you meet online that you develop friendships with, and you never really get the chance to meet until you meet them at an expo. And he said meeting Vinny was a thrill and a really cool experience.
Wow.
And I sure wish I could have went, but I got to drum and pay some bills.
Of course. And now let me ask you about you being based in Cleveland, you being based in Milwaukee. Has that been something you've been able to kind of work around, or hasn't ever really presented itself as a problem yet?
Lucky for me, I'm really green, and I'm very eager to seize any opportunities that come my way. So in the past year and some odd months being in the band, I've had no issue with driving to Cleveland. It's pretty much totals to a 7.5, 8-hour drive for me.
Oh, okay. Well,
from Milwaukee to Cleveland, and so I'll come in a day early just to make sure that no accidents occur.
Of course,
on the road if I run out of gas or pop a tire, or
you never know. That's
freak accident occurs. You just never know. So I like to have a travel day before the gig, and so far it's worked out tremendously. I have no complaints. And
the very last thing I'm going to ask you before we get into tonight's main conversation about the Peter Criss album is how long did it take you to get to the point where you are to feel that you were able to master? First of all, how long did it take you to get on that cat makeup, and how long did it take you to get to the point where you felt you're comfortable in your ability to apply that?
As far as the makeup goes, I am the slowest in my band. Despite the fact that I like to think that my makeup is the hardest. Or Peter's makeup's the hardest. You'd be surprised how long it takes 4 whiskers to get drawn on your face. So I like to give myself 2 hours. My record time is, I think, an hour and some change when I've been under the gun. But again, 4 whiskers and some green around the eyes presents a lot of problems for me, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's kind of amazing. Like, if you go back to the
2 hours.
Yeah.
And,
wow.
To get the makeup on, one of our roadies is also very handy with wigs. So
wow.
he put some silver powder in my hair to give me the more mature-looking gray hair that Peter had.
Yeah.
And then I get some time to put on my costume and warm up my hands and my voice for Beth, and then it's off to the races.
Wow. And it's kind of interesting because if you go back to the very first Kiss album, 1973, all four of them had very drastically different looking makeup designs, except for maybe Gene's is the most stayed the most like. I mean, Paul had that bandit makeup. Peter's whiskers, if you look on that debut album, they were kind of just like polka dots, which is kind of interesting to see what his character eventually evolved into.
Mm-hmm.
I
want to say I read somewhere that he had a makeup artist apply his makeup.
Yeah.
And that's why it looks so different, and why there's, I think, 6 whiskers as opposed to 4.
Yeah.
But even so, even those early photos, like the photo of them with Neil Bogart getting handcuffed to the contract, I mean, his whiskers are more lines than they are elongated rectangles.
Yeah, it's just interesting to see that it started out as... Now, of course, like we've been talking about, 2018 is the 40th anniversary of the 4 Kiss solo albums. I was kind of interested, when you and me were talking about doing this and getting it set up, because, of course, a lot of people, interesting enough that I talked to, say, the 4 Kiss solo albums, that's the one I liked the least, and it seemed to be the least popular. So the fact that you're a drummer and you play the role of Mr. Peter Criss, I thought it'd be cool to talk to you about. So, talk about when you heard the Peter Criss solo album for the very first time. What were your thoughts being a Peter fan and all that?
My first listen to the Peter Criss solo album was my last for probably 5 years.
Wow.
Simply because I was 8 years old when I got the album.
Yeah.
And I think I saw it with my parents, and I said, Peter Criss being my favorite guy and my go-to, I'm like, can I get that album?
Yeah.
And they got it for me on CD, or I think I got it for Christmas or something. And I got the remastered CD edition that they reissued in like 97.
Yeah.
I got it. And I pulled it out, and obviously they had the recreated poster insert from the 70s in there, and that was really cool to see. And I put it on the CD, and I looked at the back, and I didn't see Black Diamond anywhere.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Or anything. And I'm listening to it, and I forget the title track of the first song. But it was very R&B, very blues, kind of Motown soul. And I'm like, where's the guitars? Where's the the huge drum fills? And about 3 songs in, I just took the CD out, put it back in the case, and I put it with the very few CDs I owned at 8 years old, and I didn't open it again until I was probably 13, and I gave it a second chance. And again, it made it like 5 songs in. I took it out of the CD player, threw it in the case, put it back with the rest of my CDs. And it wasn't until I was probably 18 that I took it out a third time and put it on, and I actually really was able to listen to the full thing through and really enjoy it. And I feel terrible saying that because Peter's my favorite guy, and I actually, this past weekend, Mr. Speed had 2 shows in the Boston, New Hampshire area. So there was a lot of flying time. So I listened to the album and gave it another listen, knowing that we had this interview scheduled. And I really liked it. I'm at a point in my life where I think I've matured enough to where I can musically listen to it and digest it and get something out of the lyrics and the music and the oddness and difference it has from the rest of the not only Kiss albums, but the rest of those solo albums, because it is the most diverse of the 3, or of the 4, excuse me.
Yeah, I mean,
Gene's is kind of all over the place, but Peter's is the most left field as far as sonically speaking.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, it took you 3 listens, to really have an appreciation for it. But I also do think that, an 8-year-old brain and an 18-year-old brain, at 18 years old, you're a little more... brain's a little more developed, and you have a little more appreciation for things. I mean, the interesting thing is I think you make a lot of valid points there, because I think that's why a lot of people you talk to, they do have initially that kind of same response for a simple fact. I mean, if you listen to it now, it's not an awful album, but I do think of the 4 Kiss solo albums, it's the least Kiss-like of all 4 of them. And I think, like, as an 8-year-old, what a lot of people may not realize that, okay, even Peter's admitted in interviews that, I come from I was a lot more into jazz and R&B, Motown stuff than a lot of than the other 3 guys. So it makes sense that when you go and do a solo album, this is your very first solo album you're doing, you're going, each album. That's why they do sound so drastically different, because like Gene was influenced by the Beatles, and so his album has a little bit of a Beatles influence in it. But I think that's why the other three sold a lot more, because the other three had a lot more of a rock element to it. And Paul Stanley's, I would say, overall is the most Kiss-like. But it's funny because initially that's the reaction a lot of people have to the Peter Criss album. But I do think the 1978 Peter Criss album we're talking about is much better much better album than the last solo album he put out, which was this thing called All for One. It was not necessarily that it was an awful album, but it was supposed to be a album full of nothing but ballads. But I put it on it, and it came across to me like this is a drummer from Kiss doing show tunes, and I just couldn't sink my teeth into that. But if you compare that to a 1978 Kiss album, I think his 1978 album is comes across much heavier, much more rock oriented. It's kind of interesting when you put those two albums back to back.
For sure, and I'm going to get murdered here, but I have not heard the One for All album, and I have not heard the Criss album.
Now,
I guess I'm aging myself or dating myself, because being only 22, I feel like a total jerk, because I haven't gone to my local record store or CD place to pick those up, and I actually meant to, knowing that we were going to have this interview. I just completely ran out of time.
Well, let me.
So I have something more to talk about, but knowing that you brought those up, I will certainly be going out tomorrow and hopefully purchasing those two albums.
And if you can't find them,
I'm very much interested in hearing how those two albums sound, being that they're probably 10 years each apart in age.
Yeah. And
seeing, I guess, where Peter's head was at, because, and I have a feeling I'm going to agree with you, like you said, the 78 solo album, it's jazzy, it's R&B, there's a couple ballads on it, but, I mean, Peter's voice on that album, I think it sounds amazing. I love it. I love his voice, and I love the rasp and cackle that he has on his voice, and I think a lot of people would agree with me on that.
I mean, I almost dare.
His voice alone could probably sell those songs and make them a little more hard-edged.
Yeah, I mean,
the music isn't totally there. There's keyboards in the back, like disco keyboards, and there's very little guitars. But his drumming and his vocals on that, I think, are the true highlights of that album, and it should be, because that's what he does. It's his solo album. Yeah,
well, I think like if you're interested, it's funny you say record store. Even Los Angeles, where I'm from. Record stores are very hard to come by these days. Like even out here, but the only place you can really buy CDs anymore is a local Target or Best Buy. And the funny thing is, I was recently at Best Buy, and the guy's like checking out the new CDs, because they usually have a pretty decent selection. The guy's, sir, is there anything I can help you with? Because come July, Best Buy is no longer going to be selling CDs, but we can still order. You can still order them from us online. But I do believe you could get the. I'm not sure about the Criss CD. Criss CD, maybe. I know for sure, but One for All you can order on Amazon, so that might be a place to start as far as being able to purchase those. I'm pretty sure that if you go on YouTube, you can search for the Criss stuff. Some of it'll come up. I like the Criss stuff a lot more, because even that to me is had a little more of an edge. And I did see the band when he had a band for a while in the 90s. When him and Ace did that tour, that's when that band was going on. And I actually seen Peter's band. He had a pretty good band at the time, and he actually had a guy fronting the band, and he did some of the singing. He had the front man do some of the singing. And interestingly enough, I know that he's pretty much in retirement right now, and he's but he's supposedly he's got this rock album that he did that he's waiting to kind of put out there. I don't know what he's waiting for, but supposedly it features Richie Scarlett, who played with Ace, currently playing with Ace Frehley, and has been playing with him for over 20 years. So I'm kind of wanting him to release that to see what that sounds like. But just talking about my ear-old brain, when I heard this album for the first time, I was so naive that I thought after I put this album on, I thought, because it was on that album, Tossin' and Turnin', I thought that was a Kiss tune. I knew nothing about the fact that it was a remake of somebody else's tune.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's kind of interesting, because my favorite tracks.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say one of my favorite tracks is Tossin' and Turnin'. I loved Hooked on Rock and Roll. I mean, that's got kind of a rock element to me, and I also loved as a ballad. Like I think you can't go wrong with Can't Stop the Rain.
Yeah, no, I gotta say, off the top of my head, my favorite song on there is probably "You Matter to Me," and I'm pretty sure that's the opening track. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's because it was, from what I recall, in one of the solo album commercials. But I just really, it's a catchy song. I find myself, when I hear it, I sing it like all day long. And I think that's the sign of a good tune. If you can get your listener to sing that song,
yeah,
for most of the day, or anytime they hear it, it's stuck in their head all day. I mean, mission accomplished as far as learning song or writing songs and having a song be memorable.
Yeah.
And I mean, even the cheesy keyboard part in the background is uber catchy, despite the fact that it's a total cheeseball hook. But I really love that song. I really like it. Tossing and Turning. Obviously, they played that for I think half the Dynasty tour or a couple shows, and then replaced it with Hooligan. But that song too, it's super catchy, and it really captures Peter's musical style. It's the whole jazzy, bluesy, jazzy Motown R&B thing.
Yeah, to me, it's kind of, even after he left Kiss, it's kind of a shame that he didn't have a bigger solo career. And he was heavily at the time into drugs and stuff, and so that did play a role there. But it's kind of interesting because a lot of people said what I'm getting ready to say, which when you talk about Peter Criss, I mean, there's two categories of people. People that think he's just an awesome drummer, over the top drummer, and there are people like me that he's a much better drummer, obviously, than I can. I can't even I can't play a musical instrument, but I personally, like a lot of people, think he's almost a better singer than he is a drummer. I mean, what's your opinion on that?
He definitely has a voice that's been overused by the time he got into Kiss, and I think that attributed to his rasp. Yeah. But I'm on a number of Facebook drum pages and forums, and occasionally they highlight Peter Criss on his birthday or on a historical date that a Kiss album was released. They'll put his drum solo from 1975 Kufahl out there, or 77 Budokan, or 77 Largo or something, or 79 Largo, and people just rip the guy to shreds. And it's a shame, because I would argue that those people can't play what he just played. Yeah. And it's such a soulful and, I don't want to say tasty, but it's a very dramatic and dynamic solo, and I do my best to replicate it in our Mr. Speed shows. And you can tell there's some sound guys that get it, and there's some sound guys that don't. Where, fortunately for me, we filmed a solo last year at the Cleveland House of Blues. Wow. And our sound guy flat out asked me, he's like, "Hey, I have the capability to put flange on your drum solo. Wow. Would you want to use it?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And for those who don't know, flange is that effect that Peter Criss had, where it makes it sound like it's a very spacey kind of drum sound. I don't want to try and give you the sound effect and embarrass myself, but if you listen to it, it has a very kind of spacey feel. Oh, okay. Tommy Lee used it on Shot of the Devil on the intro to Bastard. Wow. It's a very spacey kind of feel, and that sound guy got it, and it was really cool, and I was glad we were able to capture that on video. But replicating the guy's solo, I mean, it's triplets. For drummers out there, it's a triplet rhythm, and it's all alternating hand strokes. Yeah. Okay. But do that for 5 minutes, and you're going to get really tired. And a lot of drummers don't understand the concept of how to have good dynamics. So they already can't do a Peter Criss drum solo because it's very dynamic. He's very loud, and then he's very soft. And there's certain patterns that you have to sit down and kind of work out. And I just get so disappointed, and I've given up on trying to convince people that Peter Criss is a good drummer, because they're the type of people that just sit at home behind their computers and think that they're really tough and that they know everything about the world, and it's clearly they don't. I mean, at the end of the day, it's my opinion, and that's the only opinion that really matters to me. There you go. If I'm happy, then why do I need to try and seek approval from others?
Yeah, there you go.
So,
there you go.
Peter Criss is, in my opinion, a phenomenal drummer and so distinct in style because you can throw the guy on a drum set and you'll know it's Peter Criss. And the fact that he was wanted to be a jazz drummer but ended up in a rock band, and a lot of his fills and beats and everything with all the ghost notes and all the texture that he added is highlighted and captured in all the records and all the live performances. I mean, the guy played his butt off, and it's a real shame that because he got into drugs and in the 90s when he joined, he wasn't as good as he was in the 70s.
Yeah.
And in the 2000s, he was like 60 on the farewell tour.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's a real shame that people look at that and go, wow, the guy's a terrible drummer. Well, yeah, because he's 50 or 60.
Yeah. And
he's got, I forget what it is. I don't think it's carpal tunnel, but he had, joint and ligament issues in his forearms and wrists.
Well, I'm not sure because I'd heard somewhere that he had.
Like they could when they were 20. It just doesn't happen, especially for drummers. It's such a physical activity, and if you look at how he played in the 70s and how hard he hit those drums and how passionate he was about his playing, despite maybe what people have heard for the Dynasty tour, I heard that wasn't necessarily a good
tour,
a good year for him. But over time, doing that for 10, 15, 20 years, it's going to take its toll on you.
Yeah, and Quinton, I totally agree with you in this sense that, no matter what people can say about Peter's drumming ability, I think, back in the early days of Kiss, especially around, let's be serious, if you put on that Kiss Alive 1 album, you listen to that drum solo, like you said, the guy, just look what the guy did there, and he influenced generations of drummers. You mentioned Tommy Lee. I know he said several times throughout his career that Peter was one of the first guys that really influenced him. So the man has made his mark on the rock world, and even if he never picks up another drumstick, look at the legacy that man's left behind, and not just as a drummer but as a singer. Outside of maybe like Roger Taylor and Phil Collins, there aren't or Don Henley. There's not a handful of drummers that sing lead too.
No, that's true. And to speak to what you just said, and then I'll go into my thoughts on his singing. As I've gotten older, growing up I wanted to be the best drummer.
Yeah.
And I realized at about 18 that I was never going to be as good as Neil Peart or Mike Portnoy, or I could list off a couple other drummers, but people really wouldn't know them. But those are the two most, I think, world-renowned guys that people who are and aren't musicians or drummers can know the names of. I realized I wasn't going to get as good as those guys, and I didn't look at it as a lazy standpoint because I would practice hours and hours a day in my parents' basement. But it's just, there weren't enough hours in the day for me to get that good. So I had this sort of, epiphany a couple years ago. I'm like, I don't want to be, I can't be as good as those guys.
Yeah.
But I can at least impact people to pick up the sticks and play drums. And I think if you tallied up the amount of drummers that were merely, let's just call it just drummers, and the other side being technical drummers, you'd have a far bigger list of people who are just drummers. The song, as opposed to the list of people who are technically skilled drummers that made it.
Yeah.
Because like you said, all those singing drummers that you just listed off can't touch Neil Peart or Mike Portnoy. They just can't. Reading music, playing the music, time signatures, fills, fastness, speed, ability. They can't touch Neil Peart or Mike Portnoy.
Yeah, I think the only other drummer.
The song, and on top of that, they have a great singing voice.
Yeah, yeah.
And as I've gotten older, I've kind of gone more that route where I won't be as good as Neil Peart or Mike Portnoy, but if I develop my singing, I'll be a far better musician.
Yeah, yeah.
And to get into Peter's singing, I personally have an attraction to, drummers or vocalists, who have a little more grit to their voice. And I'm not speaking to like death metal grit. I'm speaking to Peter Criss grit or Sebastian Bach grit.
Yeah, yeah.
Or Dean Castronavo, formerly of Journey, now with the Dead Daisies, as many Kiss fans know,
yeah,
has a wonderful singing voice, and sang arguably one of Journey's hardest songs to sing, being Mother Father, and he has a lot of grit to his voice. However, the guy, as I found out, smokes like a chimney, and I'm fairly certain that attributes to the wispiness and raspiness of
the voice.
Not only his voice, but Peter Criss's voice.
Wow.
And there's photos of Peter Criss holding cigarettes.
Yeah.
There's no, it's no surprise that he smoked, and it did that attribute to his raspiness. I'm sure it did, and I myself have contemplated taking up smoking to have that grit. But you look at the health hazards of that, and it's not only is it unhealthy, but it's a really expensive hobby to have.
Oh, yes, there you go. It really is. I mean, I have a friend that's a chain smoker. I mean, the guy is so obsessed with his cigarettes, he can't go 5 minutes he smokes like 2 packs a day, and if he like is broke and has no money for cigarettes, I mean, the guy gets the shakes, and he smokes so much that you get next to him, he smells like an ashtray. It's unbelievable, you know.
Right, and I know how I am with chocolate, so if I'm like I am with chocolate that I am with cigarettes, and I can't put a candy bar down or something, that's not a good sign. So
it's one more addiction you don't need. I'm with you. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. But now, the only other drummer that I would put maybe same level, like you said, as Neil Peart would be Carmine Appice. I mean, that guy is just a physical drummer, and I had a chance to interview him, and I've read his book and stuff, and I know quite a bit about the guy's career. Now, when I had a chance to interview him once, he was telling me, he said his thing with drum, and he says, if you go to watch any rock band, the drummer, of course, sits in the back of a stage, and and you got the other guys in front of him, and he said, even though I'm a drummer, my thing was, I want people to look at me. He goes, I wanted to bring the drums out in front of a stage. He goes, that's like, he told me he was influenced by this guy named Buddy Rich, which is just a great physical drummer. And Carmine was telling me, he says, the California, he says the Tower Records drum off that got started out here in California. He says that was my concept. He goes, they had a guitar-thon. He goes, I said, why don't we do a drum-a-thon? And then he said that his relationship they kind of stole his idea. But I mean, that's how that all got started. It's kind of interesting, Yeah,
and he took the words out of my mouth, but that's my exact mentality with drums, and I think you can attribute that mentality to drummers like Ringo Starr, Buddy Rich, Carmine, Peter Criss. It's no surprise to Kiss fans that the idea was we want 4 all-star members. We want every member to be cared about in that band. Yeah. And I think that had a very big impact on me, not only with trying to portray Peter the best I can in Mr. Speed, but on a personal note, my drumming for myself and in my name, I've definitely tried to follow that idea as bringing the drums to the forefront of any band I've ever been in. Yeah, whether that be with showmanship or double bass. The average person loves double bass. Yeah. They think you're twice the better drummer because there's 2 bass drums on stage.
Yeah.
Or with flash, and I just do that a lot, and I like to think of myself as a very visual drummer as well as a technical drummer. So I can totally relate to that logic, and I think it's important. Like you said, a lot of drummers are not cared about, and every photographer I've ever talked to has said, okay, I'm going to do my best to photograph you tonight, but I'm sorry if I can't. And it's a little it's a little upsetting, but it's a part of the job. You're the timekeeper.
And like you said, if you're a showman, you think you are. It's kind of your job to you make the audience, even if you are in the back, even if you are a drummer, you find a way to get the audience to pay attention to what you're doing. I mean, it's so funny because I've heard Gene talk about this over years. I read it in his book, I think, where it's kind of amazing how things get started. Like the whole tongue thing I read was because the simple fact that they had a photo shoot one day, and Gene was just trying to find a way to get the photographer's attention. He started sticking his tongue out, and he'd start doing all these weird little things, and then and Paul's like, hey, why are they focusing on you? And he's like, I don't know. I'm just trying to get the photographer to look at me. And that's kind of how that whole thing with the tongue got started. It's who he is. It's just kind of amazing. It is the legend that is Gene Simmons today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you look at the drummers that Kiss has had over the years, and let's look at Peter Criss in 1977.
Yeah.
He had easily one of the biggest drum kits at the time. It was a 15-piece drum kit.
Yeah.
And by 15-piece, that's breaking down just the drums. That doesn't include cymbals.
Yeah.
It's just there's 15 drums. And then you look at when Eric Carr joined, he had equally as big of a kit, but it was double bass. And early 80s, double bass wasn't, as common as it was in the mid to late 80s, where every hair band had to have a double bass drummer. Yeah. But on top of that, he had, a plethora of toms surrounding him. And then you look at Eric Singer, where in the grunge era, the guy still had a double bass kit, and he did a lot of stick tricks and had a really monster setup, had a lot of cymbals that were really high in the air. And even to this day, Eric Singer has one of the bigger drum kits that's on tour each and every time they go out. And,
it's kind of interesting, if you look at all three drummers, I mean, one thing I always dug about it is the fact that all three guys were great lead singers. I mean, from what I understand, when Eric Carr first joined the band, they had no idea that he could sing lead. And then, they were in a rehearsal, somebody heard him sing, and then they said, hey, why don't you try to sing Black Diamond? And he did, and, the fans loved it. And then started singing like Young and Wasted and a couple other things. And same thing with Eric Singer. I heard that Paul said, hey, hey, could you try to sing some of the backups? And they said, man, you're an awfully good singer. And then they started letting him sing like, Nothing to Lose and a couple other, I think he sings Black Diamond now. And, a couple years ago, he put out a solo album called the Eric Singer Project, which was this thing they did with John Corabi and Bruce Kulick, like an album like full of cover tunes. And Eric sang lead on some of them. And, I mean, the guy's got a great voice, it just amazes me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what are the odds that, and Kiss has said it too, what are the odds that they acquire two drummers after Peter Criss that not only could sing lead really well, but also had gritty, raspy voices? I know Eric Carr sounded a lot like Gene, I know.
Yeah.
As you can hear in live performances, Black Diamond performance with Sydney sounds like Gene is singing the song, and that's really cool. It attributed to the whole 80s look of we're going to have this big, poofy, curly mane, and we're all going to kind of really scream out every song. And then you look at Eric Singer, where he is a little more like Peter in his voice. He's got a little more soul behind it. He's actually, if you listen to in the Kiss Meets Scooby-Doo DVD.
Oh, I love it. I got that.
Don't Touch My Ascot.
Yeah.
His part, which is the majority of that song, it actually sounds to me very much like David Lee Roth.
Yeah.
With the whole kind of soul singing behind it, and I really like that. I don't know why. It's got a lot of character behind it. The whole rasp thing that Peter had, and that Eric Carr and Eric Singer had. It's got a lot of attitude and has a lot of character behind it.
I mean, that's one of the modern.
I really like that.
That's one of the modern day projects they've worked on that I really dug. The Scooby-Doo cartoon that you're mentioning, and then like you said, you mentioned that song, which is kind of like a little extra, a little bonus thing you get in the movie that people would almost miss if they don't pay attention enough to it. Which is a cool little thing, I think. But I thought that was a cool little outlet, Scooby-Doo and Kiss.
Oh yeah, I love Phantom of the Park to death. I think it's, a total cheeseball film, but because you love Kiss and you're a fan of Kiss, you let that out of your mind and you just love it for what it is, and it's your favorite band starring in a movie.
That's another.
And at the end of the day, what other bands do that? There's the Beatles. Alice Cooper has had a couple, I think, but none of these no other critic-friendly bands have ever done a movie, an actual movie with a storyline and being characters. They've never done that. But I look at Scooby-Doo meets Kiss, and I think, at least in my mind, I think that was what Phantom of the Park was supposed to be. There's a little bit of cheese factor, but there's a lot of hidden gems in there too. And now, granted, it's like 35 years after that movie came out, so you have a lot of history to deal with. Like when they opened I forget what it was called, but the Kiss, book or Bible or something.
Yeah, the icons had the powers.
Figs for Anton Fig. They have the
talisman. The talisman. That was
that's like the talismans and stuff. But they pay homage or homage to every member or person that's helped them get to where they're at right now, whether it was a studio musician or an actual member of the band. And there's so many, hidden gems like Shandy Strutter.
Yeah.
Christine was one of the girls' names. And, it's hokey, but I'm a big fan of that.
And see, here's the thing people. Here's the thing people listening to this may not even realize, because I can tell you because I was around back in the day. At the time the movie made, I mean, let's be honest, these guys, all they had done was Kiss. None of them had ever done any kind of acting. This was their first forte into acting, okay? And so, like you said, it's a bit cheesy, it's a bit campy. You watch it, and as a Kiss fan, you have an appreciation for what it is. It does come across as dated. You can kind of tell, okay, this is, I mean, as far as where it was filmed, Magic Mountain, that roller coaster doesn't even exist anymore. So it's got a little bit of a historical factor there. And as far as some of the hidden gems, like you said, okay, you had the so-called fake Kiss, so-called real Kiss versus the fake Kiss fighting. Then you had this song that they rip and destroy, but that's actually, that's actually Kiss playing. And then it's amazing. Like you said, we know all these facts later, but like I remember seeing the movie for the first time, and being a kid, I had no idea that was not Peter Criss's real voice. You come to find out years later that Ace didn't show up for some of the film. They had actually a black guy playing Ace Frehley in some of the scenes. That's not Peter Criss's voice, because he wouldn't show up to record his audio parts or redo them, and so they got some other guy. That's not Peter Criss's voice. Somebody else is doing the Peter part, which is kind of interesting. You go back and you go, okay, yeah, that's not Peter Criss. I can hear that now, being a little bit older, knowing what I know. But it's kind of interesting because, like, back in the day, I mean, you weren't even aware of any of that.
Oh, no. And that's kind of what's so cool about the 70s is there was a time where it wasn't Facebook friendly. You didn't have the internet, so you didn't know about any of this.
Well, that's my other point I was getting ready.
What's so cool about the movie is that I compare it to the '66 Adam West Batman series.
Yeah.
That was on TV. That probably many Kiss fans grew up watching it before they discovered Kiss. Yeah. And I'm reading a book on that particular series right now, and they intended it to be campy. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And I kind of see the parallel there. Like, obviously, Kiss, I don't think, anticipated their movie to be campy or cheesy, but I think as an adult, you look at it, and it's funny. It really is funny. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, don't get me wrong, I'd love to see what they could have done better now, what they intended to do then, because it'd probably be really freaking cool to see a Kiss meets Star Wars movie kind of all rolled up into one. Really captured what the comic book was about. But if you look at it for just pure entertainment and enjoyment, I think it's a great movie. Similar to the fact that the Adam West Batman series is fun too. It's just meant to be fun. It's meant to be something that, like Kiss is all about. They're about escapism. Yeah. And it's just, let's just entertain the people that are watching it right this second.
And it's kind of funny you say that, because again,
that's what this world really needs.
And it's kind of funny you say that, because again, 1978, that was the year of Kiss Meets the Phantom. That was the year of Double Platinum. That was the year of his solo albums. So all these things are coming up on the 40th anniversary of, Kiss was a band that back in the day, they put out more than like one album a year. You used to get like 2 albums a year, which is a pretty cool thing to me. And you forget 40 years ago, we did not have the internet, and so Kiss was very protective of their image. I mean, I remember when I seen the film for the first time, I had no idea what any of the guys looked like without their makeup. They had that mystique going. They really protected that. And if anybody tried to take a photo with the guys out of makeup, they would confiscate the film. They would throw. They had tight security. Nobody was allowed to take their picture, and they were really protective of that. And so back in the day, they had this superhero thing going for them, and I think that's why the time that film did work. Nobody had a clue. Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, they could walk down the street. You'd walk past them, wouldn't have a clue that they were from the guys from Kiss.
No. Well, I mean, there is the thing too. I mean, how often back then would you see a guy who's about 6 foot, with a black mane of hair, wearing women's button-down shirts? I'm not sure that was as common even then as it is today. I mean, growing up with me, I grew up in an era where kids my age listened to what many call like emo music or goth kind of music, and it was the idea of you had spiky black hair that was longer than everyone else's, and you wore tight pants and you wore band shirts, and that was your image. And there aren't even that many people around doing that now. I get looks going to my local mall or a store, and I'm like, dude, I mean, I don't know, it's still very uncommon to see someone look, have long black hair, and I guarantee you it's probably still uncommon back then.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I remember back in 1983 when the guys went on MTV, I'm sure you've seen clips of it, and they unmasked for the very first time on MTV. It was kind of funny because they would go to, get a close-up of each guy before they even announced, this is Gene Simmons. I'm like, oh, okay, that's Gene. That, just because, like you said, the size. Okay, that's what Paul looks like. Oh, before they even mentioned who it was, and it's kind of interesting. You had no clue, but just based on the guy's, the shape of his face, the size. Oh, okay, that's who that guy is, and you could kind of tell now. Quinton, I was looking at some videos you have posted on your Facebook page, and you do seem like one of you guys that's really energetic, and you get involved in a lot of things. You're really into what you're doing. So I got to ask, obviously you're an experienced drummer. Like you said, you've drummed over years in several bands. Mr. Speed's not the first thing you've done. But when you join a band like Mr. Speed, being a Kiss tribute, besides just playing the drums, you got to be able to sing some of those Peter Criss tunes. So what was that like, getting on stage and knowing that, okay, I'm not going to just have to play the drums, but I'm going to have to sing some of this stuff live?
It's still a work in progress. A completely honest answer is it's still a work in progress. And upon joining the band roughly a year and a half ago, you absolutely, at the bare minimum, have to sing Beth. Yeah. Because that's arguably their biggest hit as a band. And people, oddly enough, are very attached to that song and are very eager to hear that song live. So trial and error has put me in the position of taking vocal lessons. And I'm not ashamed to say that. I actually am proud to say that. I take vocal lessons to help myself to sing best to the best of my ability. And I'm currently working on a couple different Peter songs, but for a completely honest answer, Black Diamond is not on the set list. Okay. It's an extremely difficult song to sing. It's in a very high register, and you add on top of it that he has an immense amount of rasp in the live version. It's a very difficult song to sing. Nothing to Lose, that's definitely on my list next as far as songs to conquer and sing live. But again, it's a lot of rasp. He's got quite the range on that song. Yeah. But I'm in vocal lessons. I've been in vocal lessons for just under a year, and I truly think it's helped me. If for any musicians that are watching this, there's a documentary out there called Hired Gun.
Oh, I've seen it. Yeah, it's
Jason Hook, the guitar player of Five Finger Death Punch, I believe, produced the film. Yeah. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it on the internet. It's called Hired Gun. It's a $10 purchase, and it's probably the best $10 purchase you'll ever make because it gives you some insight into what it's like to be a hired musician. Yeah. And for me, what opened my eyes in that documentary was hearing, I forget who it was, let's just say it's Eric Singer because we're talking Kiss. Yeah. Though I'm sure I'm wrong. Yeah. Eric Singer said, you can play drums really great. There's millions of drummers out there who can play great. Okay, so let's chop the list in half because you find out that half those drummers are total jerks. So because you're a nice guy, you make the next cut. Okay. So now you're a nice guy that can play drums really well. Well, let's see if you're available. All right, that list goes in half again because these guys, the nice drummers that are really good, are already, half of them are already in gigs.
Yeah, yeah.
So now the list is even smaller. Then you find out, oh, well, this artist would like you to sing.
Yeah.
That narrows it down to about 3 people. And out of those 3 people, you're a good drummer that can sing, and you can get along with everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's who your competition is. So that was very eye-opening for me. And through that and finding out that I could not sing Beth to the ability that I needed it to, I decided to enroll in vocal lessons. And I highly encourage every musician out there, if you have any doubts as far as wanting to sing or you'd like to sing, do it sooner than later, because I wish I would have enrolled in vocal lessons when I was also playing drum lessons.
Yeah,
or also in drum lessons, because it's such a useful tool if you're going to be a professional musician, because you will, I can't guarantee it, I don't know your situation, but I am fairly certain that will give you the extra edge on getting that gig. So, luckily in my position, my drumming has gotten me the Mr. Speed gig, but I'm constantly trying to work at my singing voice and get it to a point where I can sing Strange Ways, Black Diamond, Nothing to Lose, Getaway, Dirty Living.
Yeah. Hard Luck Woman, maybe. Hard Luck Woman, yeah.
I would love to sing all those songs. Hard Luck Woman and Baby Driver is one that I'd love to sing as well. It's just, you can hear on the record, the guy screams his butt off.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a hard tune. I would probably say, and maybe I'm a little biased here, but I think Peter Criss has the hardest voice to try and replicate.
Yeah, yeah.
Out of any of those members in Kiss. I mean, Ace Frehley has a very kind of like flat-sounding voice. It's got a little bit of, New York in there. But it's not a huge range. Gene Simmons, you just got to get the growl down. And again, that's extremely difficult to conquer. And Paul Stanley, too, he's got quite a range. But Peter Criss has such character and such a distinctive voice that it's really hard to replicate it. It's very hard. But
I tip my hat to you, because a lot of guys, like, oh, I'm a real musician, I don't need lessons. But I tip my hat to anybody that says, kind of like what you're saying, I'm willing, I want to keep this gig, I'm willing to do whatever I have to do to, to get better at what I do, to improve my craft. More power to you, Quinton. That's good. A lot of guys would not do that. And as far as that documentary you mentioned, Hired Gun, anybody that's got Netflix, that's also currently available on there. And Jason Hook is one of these guys who, he's known for playing with Alice Cooper. He's played with a variety. One of the biggest gigs he had was with the singer Mandy Moore, which I think she got her start on the Disney Channel or something. He's like, I'm more
I think
of a...
it's Hillary Duff. I think it's Hillary Duff.
Hillary Duff, yeah, Hillary Duff. But the point being, he says, Hillary Duff, I'm more of a metal guy, but when I seen what they were offering me for the gig, I'll learn the songs. Yeah, I'll play with you. And he said he was playing with some other bands, and then he got the offer to join Five Finger Death Punch, and he's been there for, I think, close to 10 years now. And so that's kind of the story like you're talking about. Be willing to do whatever you have to, to get the gig, to keep the gig, to whatever you have to do to improve your, craft. And there's some guys that have the attitude, I play nothing but, metal or pure rock. John Five's a great example. This is a guy that, not only plays with Marilyn Manson, Rob Halford, David Lee Roth. He's written songs with Meatloaf, Lynyrd Skynyrd. He's all over the place, and that's why he's had the success he's had, because kind of what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was very surprised to hear Jason Hook's story.
Yeah.
To kind of get off track, but on the Hired Gun track, I had no idea that he started off in an acoustic act.
Yeah.
But deep inside, he always kept the passion of, I want to be in an original rock metal band and play my own music. He kept that passion in every gig he's ever had, and look where it got him. It got him in arguably the biggest rock metal band
currently out there. Yeah, and that's
I think it goes to show that if you work hard, if you persevere, and if you really believe yourself and have a deep passion for something, and you work at it to the best that you can, and whether that's practicing every day or taking opportunities to gig or doing interviews like you or I are doing, or anything that is considered work or highlighting yourself as a musician or a person, I think you can accomplish your dream.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It goes to show that I think with Jason Hook that is possible.
Yeah, and it's totally true because success means different things to different people. But I think a guy in a tribute band is just as successful as a guy like Jason Hook, for a simple fact you're doing what you love. You're doing your craft, even if you're not doing it full time. Even if you're doing it on the side. I mean, how cool is? I mean, how. I just dig talking to guys like you and Rich for a simple fact. How cool is it to grow up as a Kiss fan, and then you get to join this great Kiss tribute band, and the story of Mr. Speed's not too far off what you're talking about here, because like I said, I talked to Rich and he's explained band's been in existence over 22 years now. They're still going strong. They've been on national TV, play the national NBA playoffs. Just being in a rock band, you don't always get these kind of opportunities, but when they come up, you take them, and the fact that you're now
to Rich,
yeah.
Rich is the most passionate guy I know about
Kiss, anything,
about anything he sets his mind to, and what he set his mind to 23, 24 years ago was Mr. Speed. He wanted to set out and he wanted to be the Kiss tribute band of all Kiss tribute bands, and I don't think he knew he would get to where he's at right now.
Yeah.
And would accomplish all the things he did, but he certainly had a passion for, I want to be the Kiss tribute band that I want to see. And does that sound cheesy? Maybe to some people, but I'm buying into it.
Yeah, and I
don't want to make it sound like I needed convincing, but it was certainly a very infectious mindset that was bestowed upon me joining this band, because before joining this band, I had the mentality of, well, I'll kind of combine all the members of Kiss and a little bit of my selfish attitude as far as doing stick tricks on stage and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll just wear the makeup, and it'll be cool, and I'll have this kind of hybrid-looking Peter Criss style drum set. But joining Mr. Speed, I got this infectious attitude of, I need to be Peter Criss.
Yeah,
and it's interesting because we do a meet and greet after every show.
Yeah. And
these people can pinpoint and pick out every little thing that you do. When you think they're not watching you, they're actually watching you. And people aren't kind either. They'll go, yeah, that one whisker is a lot bigger than the other one.
Yeah.
Or I can't. Your green around your eyes looks a lot darker than Peter's. Why is it so dark? I actually went out and bought a lighter shade of green
because of that.
I'm constantly trying to work at my makeup and how it can be more like Peter's. I recently completed a replica Peter Criss drum set from the 1970 that he used from 1977 until he got kicked out of the band. So that'll be debuting this Saturday.
How cool is that?
I'm not sure when this interview will air, but it'll probably have been debuted already.
Yeah,
so it's constantly working at trying to be the best Peter Criss that I can be. And I made up my mind, I want to be Peter Criss. I don't want to be Eric Singer.
Yeah.
I'm unsure if I want to be Eric Carr. I have never put on Eric Carr's makeup to see what it looks like on me. But right now, I'm trying to do my best Peter Criss. And I can hold that attitude and thank Rich for that attitude, because the guy has this infectious passion for Kiss and for his band, Mr. Speed, which is his band. And it's infectious. The guy
it's funny.
Lives and breathes trying to be Paul Stanley and trying to put out a Kiss tribute band that people can go see and really be proud of and want to go see, and they think that represents Kiss to the best of our abilities. And
it's funny because a guy that's just kind of a fan of your band, Mr. Speed, over the internet. I've never seen the band live. Like I said, never had the opportunity to. But I'm impressed with every time I talk to Rich, I'm just talking to the guy. I'm convinced he is Paul Stanley. For a simple his voice, just his talking voice, he sounds like Paul. If you ever heard Paul Stanley talk, he's kind of got that sarcasm to him, and he's not even trying to put it on. It just comes on so naturally. And then, kind of like I said, growing up a Kiss fan, you start this Kiss tribute, doing over 22 years. What a great story! And then, he also shared with me a couple years ago, on the anniversary of a Cadillac Michigan High, he got to go. Him and the rest of the band got to go take part in a special anniversary event there. As a Kiss fan, how cool is that to grow up and get to be part of something like that,
Oh my God, absolutely. He's been, the band Mr. Speed has been blessed with so many opportunities, and I wish I could have been there for all of those opportunities. But
you know what?
Age
Quinton,
and lack of opportunity didn't have kept me from doing that. So
yeah, but Quinton, being the Mr. Speed fan I am, I almost guarantee you that other opportunities are going to come the band's way, such opportunities as we've been talking about, that you will get to be a part of. Before we wrap this up, I got to ask, what do you think about controversy over Eric and Tommy wearing the classic Peter and Ace makeup? Do you have a feeling about that one way or the other?
I am pro. Kiss.
Yeah,
I and here's my reason why.
Yeah.
Being a musician and being for the better part of my professional career, I've just been a hired gun, for lack of a better term. I've only once had my own band, but it never really got success.
Yeah.
It was an original band, blah, blah, blah. The point is, I've always been basically a hired gun.
Yeah.
So, knowing how at least my small taste of the industry works, I can totally understand the shoes that they're in and the opportunity that they took being in the band. And, clearly the people that don't like it are people that don't understand the music business.
Yeah.
And don't understand the idea of opportunity. And that's not a bash at those people and their character. It's just flat out, like, I don't know anything about the stock market, so why would I shoot my mouth off about the stock market? That would be foolish.
Yeah, and I agree with you for the simple...
What it comes down to is, anyone who's a Kiss fan, if they got the opportunity to go and they said, hey, look, we want you to be the new Gene Simmons in the Kiss 2.0.
Yeah.
Do you want the opportunity?
Hell yeah.
I bet $100 that that person would say yes. How do I do that? They wouldn't go, no, I don't want to do it because Gene Simmons is my idol, and I don't want to do Gene Simmons wrong.
Yeah.
You would totally milk that opportunity to go do that.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to sound like some kind of punk kid saying that. It's just matter-of-factly.
No, I agree with you, and I'll tell you why.
I would go do it. Rich has said he would go take the opportunity, and I would just give my best to be the best person to fit that job. And the thing is, you have two guys that are just trying to do their job, and they're musicians, and it just is what it is.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with it.
And it's different for me, too. I mean, I didn't grow up in the 70s, so I really have no personal attachment to the original lineup.
Yeah, and I'll wrap it...
have a personal attachment to the 80s lineup, and I don't have a personal attachment to the reunion tour at all. My personal attachment, my first Kiss was the farewell tour, but I was too young to know what that meant. My second concert was the Rock the Nation tour, which was, as we all know,
with Poison.
Eric Singer and Tommy Thayer's first tour together.
Yeah.
And I remember leaning over my dad asking why Peter Criss looked so buff.
Yeah.
Because when I first saw Peter, he was a little, chubby.
Yeah.
He was like 60. Then seeing Eric Singer in the cat makeup thinking he was Peter Criss, I asked why he was so buff, and my dad said, that's not Peter Criss. And I kind of had this moment, I'm like, oh. And I for the 1 second I went, oh, the next second I was back to enjoying the concert. It didn't even...
Phase you.
It didn't even affect me. It didn't phase me at all. And I'm just happy for me that there's a Kiss out there that I can enjoy right now.
And the main reason I don't have
I'm going to be very disappointed when they hang it up.
Yeah.
And I'll definitely go see Kiss 2.0 because I'm a fan of Kiss as a whole entity.
Yeah. And Kiss is one of those bands. Kiss is one of those bands. It's much more than a rock band. It's a lifestyle. It's like the circus came to town. And the main reason I don't have a problem with this is the guys are at least being honest about it. If they were trying to fool the fans into thinking this is Ace and Peter, then I'd have a problem with it. But they're not lying about what they're doing. So, like you said,
no, they're not. And like Tommy Thayer does some ace moves.
Yeah.
That can be seen in video.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they have different costumes. They're just wearing the makeup.
Yeah.
And, yeah, there's a personal connection to the makeup, but look at Eric Singer. The guy plays a kit that resembles nothing of Peter Criss's drum kit. Yeah. Eric Singer flips sticks.
Yeah.
He has a completely different playing style of Peter Criss. His makeup looks nothing like the way Peter wore it. Tommy Thayer's too. Tommy Thayer doesn't have a big enough forehead to make his makeup look as convincing as Ace's.
Yeah.
I'm not making fun of Tommy for having a small forehead.
Well, you can tell. You can tell it's different.
It's just the fact of the matter that they have two completely different facial structures. So to try and compare the two and say, wow, they look just like each other is a little ludicrous to me.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I get upset when people try to say that it's wrong, but at the end of the day, it goes back to what I said earlier about really, I'm over trying to convince people what my opinion is. At the end of the day, my opinion matters the most.
It's about supply and demand. If people really weren't into it, people wouldn't be going to the shows. People are still going to shows. That's why they're doing it. I want to thank you, Quinton, for doing this tonight. I really appreciate you taking time out of busy schedule to do this. It's been great talking, and I, as you can see, we could talk all night. But I know it's late where you are, so we're going to wrap this up. But thanks for doing this. I'd love to do it.
Let me plug something quick. First of all, thank you very much for reaching out to me. I had a blast doing this interview, and again, I apologize for the setbacks that occurred today, but I'm glad we were able to perform this interview tonight. And if anyone out there is interested in hiring Mr. Speed or interested in taking a look at the band, you can view us at our website. It's www.mrspeedonline.com. There is no period or punctuation in between the Mr. It is one word, Mr. Speed Online, all lowercase. And you can get all your info you need to know about Mr. Speed there, where we're playing, photos, news tidbits. If you want to book the band, you can contact us there. If you want to send us a personal message, anything. We read everything, we see everything, and we're truly grateful for all of our fans out there. And old and new, we love each and every one of our fans. If you're a Facebook person, our Facebook tag, I think, is Mr. Speed Online as well. I know our profile pic's a blue celestial background with the Mr. Speed logo. We have a lot of stuff on Facebook that you don't see on the website. Weekly
updates,
activity-type things. And I think we're on Twitter, too. We're on Instagram as well. If you search it and you see a KISS-looking logo, that's us. And we're constantly posting pictures and videos and news tidbits about where we're going to be next and things that we're up to. But again, thank you, Jason, for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Okay, and we'll have to do it again. Thanks so much, Quinton. Take care.
Yeah, have a great night.
Okay, bye-bye.